But now the democracy offenders. That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, the blowhards in the Democrat Party want America to believe that they're the true saviors of democracy. They'll take almost any opportunity to evangelize on that topic.
When people doubt that elections are on the level, that is the beginning of the end of this wonderful democracy. Democracy starts flying out the window and some other form of autocracy comes in when conspiracy theories like the big lie are allowed to grow. Well, we all saw what could happen on January 6th.
Lame, 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 Chucky. But how are Democrats respecting democracy as it flies out the window when their president tries to usurp Congress's spending power with billions and billions of student loan forgiveness? Of course, the Supreme Court's going to strike that down, just like they struck down his unconstitutional vaccine mandate for large private companies. Nice try, Joe. Now, if the Biden team cared about preserving democracy, the system, they wouldn't be pulling this nonsense. And they're also spitting on our democratic system when they repeatedly fail to hold the FBI accountable. When the public sees how the DOJ targets conservatives and then lets liberals skate, well, faith in our rule of law is shattered.
Let's take a look at the hardened criminals that your Justice Department sent these armed agents to go terrorize on that morning. Here they are at Mass. Here's the 7 children with Mr. Houck and his wife. He has offered to turn himself in, and this is who you go to terrorize.
The politicization of the department is a problem. And you can tell your department, not a chance in hell we're going to be reauthorizing that thing without some major, major reforms.
Has the Department of Justice brought even a single case under this statute? It's a yes, no question.
The job of the United States Marshals is to defend the lives of
the answer is no.
Garland was thoroughly unconvincing. And so much for the concept of fitness for office. Now, any democratically elected official who cares about the process, at a minimum, must be physically and mentally capable of doing their job. They have to be capable of managing a crisis, of processing information that's sometimes complicated, and even details that are conflicting. Yet no one on earth believes that Joe Biden is calling the shots in either foreign or domestic policy. The man has trouble remembering the names of his own cabinet members, his own Supreme Court justices, or world leaders.
And I want to thank that fellow down under. Thank you very much, pal. I want to thank the former general. I keep calling him general, but the guy who runs that outfit over there.
Those are the words of Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Valen. Happy birthday to you.
The man doesn't even know where he is on any given day, and we're supposed to believe that he's directing our Ukraine policy?
Welcome to Kingswood Community Center. Actually, that's the one down I used to work. As a joke. You didn't know where we were. Anyway.
Mr. President, thank you.
And the values reflected in the AANHPI.
Okay, there's actually nothing to laugh about. The old chap just isn't all there. In 2020, the press hated Trump so much that they were willing to play defense for Biden, who was an absentee candidate. Now, ultimately, the country elected a hologram. And as a result, now, pivotal decisions affecting our nation's future are being made by kind of a combo of bureaucrats, technocrats, or Obama holdovers for whom no one voted. So this is how I see the days unfolding for Biden in the White House. The chief of staff, Jeff Zients, tells Biden what type of weapons the generals want for Ukraine, and Biden nods, M100 tanks? Okay, give him a bunch. Susan Rice pushes some executive order on new equity standards across the government, and Biden mutters, yeah, sure, why not? But Jill usually orders my food with MSG. No MSG. I mean, going to ESG, MSG, he doesn't know the difference. Now, contrast Biden with Trump. You know, the staff brought proposals to him. He considered them. He brought in opposing points of view. He was in the Oval Office pretty much all day. He had the different voices argue in front of him. He wanted opposing points of view. Then he made decisions. He was a hands-on leader. No one thinks Biden is hands-on. Handsy, maybe. Now, the voters know the truth. They were hoodwinked. The results of a new survey is terrible news for Joe. Nearly 7 in 10 registered voters now say he's too old for another term, and more Democrats agree, 48%, than disagree, 34%, with that view. Yikes. So the people get shafted, and democracy, remember, they're protecting it. It seems like a joke when we have a figurehead president. And speaking of charades, what about the people of California who voted to re-elect Dianne Feinstein almost 5 years ago? She turns 90 in June and has been in poor health for a long time. This description from the LA Times about her condition was in 2018. As Feinstein campaigned, it was clear she had lost more than a few steps. Speaking to a large gathering of Democratic activists a month before the election, the senator seemed heavily scripted and controlled by staff, and leaned on others to answer questions during a limited give and take. How does anything about that sound familiar to you guys? And now Feinstein is in the hospital, missing 11 votes this week alone because she has a case of the shingles, which you probably know causes agonizing nerve pain. It's terrible for her, and it's corrosive to democracy. The 40 million Californians deserve an active senator capable of answering real questions. It should make all of us both sad and mad. And what about the poor people of Western Pennsylvania who were exposed to the East Palestine train derailment fallout? Nobody's doing anything to help us, said Patty Barber, who lives in Darlington, Pennsylvania, less than 1 mile from the spill site. Pennsylvania is being left out. So who's fighting for them in the Senate? Well, not John Fetterman. He's in the hospital for the foreseeable future for clinical depression, meaning Pennsylvania has only one functioning senator. Now, what a warped view of democracy that is. The press, the state Democratic Party, and Fetterman's wife Giselle all knew the guy was a mess, and they didn't care. They pushed him to run anyway. So now the people of his state, terrified of this toxic spill, need their senator present, and he can't be there. Of course, though, the reason Biden doesn't want to travel to the derailment site is because we don't want to see our president attached to a teleprompter at a time like this. We want a conversation from a man who understands the issues and is clear about the solutions. Well, that ain't in Biden's wheelhouse.
Mr. President, do you plan to visit Ohio to discuss the situation there with the train derailment with people there in the federal system?
I've spoken with every official in Ohio, Democrat and Republican, on a continuous basis, as in Pennsylvania. I laid out a little bit in there what I think the answers are, and I will be answering some.
Yeah, no rush. Why bother reassuring the people there? Let another month pass. Now, the only thing that our defenders of democracy care about is making sure they win in 2024. And if it means blocking and tackling again for Biden, they'll do it.
When will you announce your re-election, sir?
When I announce it.
Who will end up doing more damage to the nation's faith in democracy? The man who destroyed our energy independence, wrecked our economy, and bungled the withdrawal from Afghanistan? Or those rioters who stormed the Capitol building? Hint, the answer rhymes with Haydn. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.